Is our police officer coming, Nick?
I was told Lieutenant Dye would be here.
What's that?
I was told Lieutenant Dye would be here.
I believe he is. I believe his vehicle's out. He was on my phone as I was walking past.
Okay.
Yes. Got Tracy on. Laura. Let me just get them over panelists and then I'll have you call order.
So our recording person is just still setting up. So.
Okay.
Oh, you are ready.
Yeah. I always send her the recording after.
Good deal. All right, good evening, Ward 2 Neighborhood Advisory Board. Let's call this to order and kick it off with a roll call. And if I may, we'll recognize Mr. Tyler Hinman, our newest member of the NAB. Welcome, sir. Glad to have you.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
All right.
All right. Mimi Fuji Strickler. Absent. Steve Schwartzer.
Present.
Present. Present. Jack Heineman. Just make sure he's not Tyler Hinman.
Present.
Donna Keats.
Present.
Tyler Langdon. Absent. Mara Langer.
Present.
Stacy E. Shen. Absent. Hal Taylor. And Kimmons.
Here.
So with Tracy as the alternate, we do have a quorum. We also have council member Naomi Dewar here and myself and Mary Potts as our minute taker.
Wonderful.
And let me thought, Tracy, it may be recording. Do you have both your phone and your computer on?
Yeah.
So that makes a reverberation on our end. Can you, or do you need the phone or?
I most likely will just be listening.
Okay, well, you might want to either turn off the volume on your computer or turn off your phone, one or the other. Or
mute the phone.
Both. Mute the phone would be the suggestion from our chair.
My speaker is blown on my computer. Just bear with me.
Thanks, Tracy.
All right. Thank you, Tracy. With that, we'll move on to agenda item A2, public comment. With that, any comments from the public? 3 minutes on the room? No. Okay.
On the, it's regarding the adaptive training center on Bondi. We're the most impacted property, I think, because we back up to the property. And my name is Candy Demarest, who live at 1190 Delmont. And I had a few concerns about it. It's a conditional use permit that's being applied for. And it kind of seems like once it goes conditional commercial permit, that, you know, it makes it really easy to keep being that. And in the past, I don't know if anybody can hear me at my voice.
Well, I was going to suggest that you come up a little closer to the table. The recording, Nick, is where?
All right, there's 2 mics.
Whatever helps.
Maybe right here. It's fine.
Here's fine. Correct.
Recognizing, just to make sure on the front end, some of the concerns might be addressed in the presentation itself.
Okay.
If you like, we could either we could revise the agenda to pull it up sooner, or you can hold the questions until after that.
All right. Well. Are there many items on the agenda?
Outside of some updates, this is the only development project that we're going to be doing.
Okay. Would you all prefer for me to wait?
I think it would be easier to get a lot of the questions answered.
So wait.
Or maybe form new questions as well.
Okay, then I made a list. Maybe I can go through my concerns quickly.
And guess what? You get to do both.
Okay.
You can speak at general public comment and you can speak on the item. That's how it works.
Thank you. I don't usually speak. So, all right. So anyway, again, I'm Candy Demarest, and the western boundary of Bondi Lane, as in the past, it was 2.5 acre minimums. And now that there is the Reno sphere of influence, there seems to be a little more cutting off. There has been a cutting off into a 1 acre parcel and some changes with some of the other property owner on Bondi Lane. And that is also affected by this adaptive riding commercial conditional use permit. One of my main concerns is where does it remain non-commercial, private homes? There, it has been the west side of Bondi Lane. We have quality homes. We've lived there 30 years. We've kind of invested and planned our retirement there, and we would prefer not to be encroached on by commercial. And we are very concerned about our wells. And I'm speaking for a couple other neighbors that had reasons they couldn't be here. Our wells, we are afraid if there's commercial use of many horses, they drink 10 gallons a day. Water's required to water the arenas to keep the dust down. And we're just concerned about the water usage and thinking that it should at least be, if there is such a thing, it should be on city water, not on our privately owned irrigation ditches, which is where we do get our water to water our homes. There's other things, but mainly it's that if there's many horses, it's going to be dust, arena watering, horse washing, horse drinking, as opposed to all the people that I've talked to. We're animal lovers, we have horses, but we don't have a commercial situation, and I think that would change things. So that's dust control and water. There also are encroaching sheds already on that property, and so I would like to address that with regard to mitigations. I would like to address the traffic on the roundabout because it's already difficult to get in and out of there and without crunching vendors. And the other thing is that we do highly support Kids and Horses in Gardnerville, Minden, where they have experienced people that have already done this. And I'm experienced in it. I used to work at Marvin Piccolo School as a volunteer. So I don't see that is a need. And there's another neighbor who was turned down for teaching children. So I don't know why this one would be approved. Okay, so there might be a couple tiny things in an infrastructure thing. We already don't have enough veterinarians and farriers. So I kind of am concerned about bringing a large number of horses in. And I'll be quiet.
Candy, don't please. Don't be quiet. We appreciate that. So just want to make sure we caught everything. Ahead of that, you were concerned about the boundary where commercial meets the private property. The water usage specifically, you would propose that this be city water versus the local well and irrigation. Also, you're concerned about the water runoff and dust with the animal activity. The existing structures, which are concerned. And then lastly, you mentioned the traffic impact, which I hope that the presentation will include a traffic study.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. With that, any other public comments?
I'll come grab it.
Okay. Without other public comments.
Steve, sorry, it looks like there's a hand raised. I don't want to miss it.
Digital hands.
Yes. Right. We have Mary Culpepper.
Mary, the floor is yours.
Hi, I am Mary Culpepper. Can you see me? It's very disconcerting.
We can't see you, but your hand is raised and your name is typed out beautifully.
Do you have, Mary, a video you can turn on?
There's not an option to do that as a participant. So
just 1 second, Mary. We're going to see if we can admit you as a panelist. So we can...
Awesome. Oh, great. Oh, that's awesome. It said I got promoted as a panelist. Special now. And I actually have my son Marshall here with me as well. And he also wanted to make a public comment. Do you have a preference on who goes first?
Whomever you like. Hi,
okay.
Marshall.
Okay, I'll start. So my name is Mary Culpepper. My family and I live on the corner of South Meadows and Double Diamond. And I wanted to speak tonight on the item around street racing. We happen to live maybe 1/4 mile from Trademark, which tends to be kind of a hot spot right now. And aside from it just being really annoying, hearing the cars wake us up at 2:30 in the morning, it's also really dangerous. There's been illegal activity. They're out near where they're battery factories happening. They're blocking neighborhood entrances. And my family and I were able to have Naomi over this weekend to talk through some ideas, just to kind of do some problem solving. My husband, who couldn't be here tonight, he's at a class, had some ideas around cost recovery. And so the ability to kind of look into things like charging the people who are involved or cited or arrested in the cost for the helicopter or extra police that end up going out. I definitely thought that was a great idea. We also support things like additional technology, license plate readers, and all the other fancy technology that our officers might need to help support finding the people who are involved in what's happening, and increasing penalties. I know that there's been some work around increasing the impound times for cars, which I think is just really important. Even if these are other people's cars and, you know, my friend's car, my parents' car, we have to stop this somehow. And so I just wanted to voice that. I also wanted to give a shout out to Sergeant Lopez, who was very responsive one evening when I called for non-emergency. He called me back within about 10 minutes and really helped me have a better idea of the size of what was happening. I thought it was 20 or 30 cars, and come to find out there are hundreds involved at a time, and just some of the issues that law enforcement is having. So I wanted to give a public thank you to him for being helpful in that process. And can I let Marshall go now? Is this an okay time to do that?
It's a perfect time.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Marshall, and I want to talk about tree racing too. So when we were on the freeway, we were driving and there were like 20 to 30 cars just taking up the freeway and slowing traffic down. And about that, I was wondering, because I had an idea in the car, well, why don't we make like a structure, broken down racetrack where they could just destroy areas inside of that? And when they destroy everything, we would just build another one.
I love the imagination, Marshall. That's a great idea. I don't know if we've come up with that one yet.
And I want to take a moment and give a little more elaboration to what Marshall described to me. He told me that he was actually, as I understood it, on 395 or I-580. And that, was it cars, I think you said, Marshall, all lined up in a row and slowed down the traffic from like the usual 65 to like 35, I think is what you told me. And then they all stayed in a row and they wouldn't let anybody pass. And this went on, I think you told me, all the way from South Reno, all the way up to the Spaghetti Bowl. And so they just took kind of command of the freeway. And you were in the car, you said, and it was very upsetting. So did you want to say anything more? Did I get it right, or?
No, that is all I wanted to say.
Okay.
Appreciate you sharing, Marshall.
Thank you.
That, you're talking to the right people, because with Councilwoman Dewar, also representation from the police department, this is the perfect venue to be escalating these concerns. So thank you both very much. Recognize we're not going to have any changes tonight. Appreciate the recognition for Sergeant Lopez. That's wonderful. And we appreciate you coming with ideas as well, to which, knowing that Naomi beat us to the punch and already met you on your home turf, I look forward to hopefully improving this in the future.
Thank you. Thanks for allowing this opportunity, especially virtually. We really appreciate it.
We appreciate you dialing in.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
All right. Any other public comments? Wonderful. With that, let's move on to item A3, approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. All in favor? Or I'm sorry, second? We have a second. All in favor?
Second. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda has been approved. Moving on to A4, approving the minutes from our last meeting on August 16th. Any motions to approve minutes? We have a motion. Any seconds? We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Great. Minutes approved as well. Which brings us to the meat and the potatoes at item A5, our council liaison report. I'll take it over to Naomi.
Okay. Well, great to see everyone. And I wanted to give a shout out to Tyler as well. I thought he ran for office, and so that shows incredible interest in the city. And I know that many of the city council members started by being on a neighborhood advisory board, including myself, Paul McKenzie, Oscar Delgado. I talked to Bonnie Weber. So over half of the council started by starting out at a neighborhood advisory board, and it's a really good introduction to what goes on in the city. So welcome from me as well. We have a lot going on. Probably, I'm trying to think, our last time, I think I updated everyone on the search for a Ward 5 council member, did I? And the struggle that we had and how vigorously I advocated for having an election. And we even got the county elections officers to weigh in. And she said there was no way they could have an election prior to starting in January and finishing in March, April. So we went ahead and did an appointment for Ward 5, and that position's been filled. But while that was all happening, the person in Ward 3, which is Oscar Delgado, also resigned with also a week notice. And so we are bidden by our charter to fill a position in 30 days or have a special election. So this time we had Jamie Rodriguez, who is the county elections officer, actually come to the city and talk to us through it and explain again why they could not do a special election. This time, they're right in the middle of the election. So last time they explained that they had already certified who would be on the ballot back. We learned at this last meeting, July 22nd was the day that they had to certify. And obviously neither position came open before that. And so there was no way for that person to appear on the ballot for this November election. And in this case, we had the same story. And so again, we would have an 8-month vacancy. They're only appointed for 2 years. They have to run for office the immediate next election, so they have to run. So we went forward reluctantly with another election. And appointment. And this time, last time 36 people applied, this time 19 people applied. We still went with a top 5. And so out of that came everybody's top 5. So 7 of us, well, actually there weren't 7 of us. So we were missing Oscar, of course, and Jenny Breckers couldn't be there. So 5 of us, times 5 was 25 possibles. We took the highest ranked people. So there was 2 people tied for 1 and 2 people tied for 2. So we decided to interview 4 people. And this week, starting right now, today, there's an interview process going on in Ward 3. They're having a hybrid meeting where the people can first answer a series of questions, and then for the next hour, meet and greet with the people. And they're having 2 of these back to back at 2 different locations. So then at our next council meeting, which is just next Wednesday, we are going to interview all 4 people and make a choice. And what astonished me was that when we did it before, immediately upon making a choice, they swore in the person. They didn't give them any chance to say, well, I don't know. I don't know what to think. You just selected me. I haven't quite comprehended that. Let me think about it. No, they immediately swore them in, and they are serving and have been very effective so far. Immediately hit the ground running. So I think again, something similar is going to happen. You know, we'll make a choice, and someone will be selected, and they'll probably hit the ground running. So that's been happening, and that's been taking a lot of time because I think it's really important to interview the people prior to. So I've tried to spend about an hour with 10 of the 19 people, so I could have a good feel for them before I kind of put together my top 5. And then, you know, I think that's just how that's going to go. So before I go on to anything else, any questions from anyone about that? It's been a big topic of conversation. Yeah. Okay. This week we have several, I'm going to ask Nick, I'm going to kind of steal his thunder on one thing, but I'm going to ask you to tell more about it. We had our 4th hazardous waste, electronic waste drop off. And we held it at Huffaker School. And, you know, usually I think we get a couple hundred people come with their waste. And it's a nice pace. You know, they never have to wait more than maybe 10 minutes. Well, this time, 400 people came in vehicles, and most of the vehicles had 2 people per vehicle. And So some of them came very early, a half hour early. So they had to wait a half hour till we opened. And then, you know, it's a process to get everyone through, signed up. Anyway, it was a tremendous success. And I'm gonna, I'll see what else Nick has to add. I wish I could actually play this video. I took a 15-second video of a guy, he had a full truck. And I just asked him, and I don't know that I could play it loud enough. Let me turn up my volume. It's up all the way. I know you can't see it. Is there any way to cast it or anything? Well, just listen. You might not be able to see his face. I'll put it this way, but just listen.
So this event, if it hadn't been for this event, we're on the tail end of a 3-month property cleanup. This is it right here for us. This van is full, and if it wasn't for this, we wouldn't have it done. Thank you very much, Senator Reno.
So, and he had a lot more to say too. I finally said, I'm gonna start videoing you. So many people were so grateful, and they just spoke to the point that they thought, you know, we've had 4 of these just this year. They felt like maybe there could be more in other wards, or even a central drop-off place for this kind of waste. So that was kind of cool. There's a lot more going on. So this Friday, also at Huffaker School in our ward, some of you may remember that I gave some council donation money to the Girl Scouts who were doing a public safety project. And it was about creating a scary painting on the concrete to get people's attention so they wouldn't be looking at their phones, it's people or kids, and not crossing without looking. So the 2 schools that the school board suggested, they had a public safety officer, MJ, she suggested Anderson School, which was in Ward 2, but is no longer. So it's over by Virginia Lake, and Huffaker. So we did Anderson, but COVID happened. And so they had the money left. And so they went ahead and completed the painting at Huffaker last week. And we're having the big reveal on Friday. So everyone's invited. There will be, I understand, representation from the police there, RPD, because it's very important safety. MJ has retired. She probably worked at the school district, I don't know, 20 years doing safety for kids. And so there's a lot of opportunity there. The principal will be there, a lot of school administrative type people. So everyone's welcome. We just decided on the date today because we were gonna do it Thursday, but the principal is not available. So we just switched it today to Friday. And so they're sending out a news release tomorrow. That's in the kind of the north end of our ward. In the south end of our ward, there's also a pretty big happening. You may know, I think you all know that Damonte Ranch High School is our high school that's in Ward 2. Galena High School is right on the edge of Ward 2. And residents from Ward 2 go to Galena as well, but an awful lot of people go to Damonte Ranch. Well, on Thursday, they're having a locking up the principal, holding him hostage until people bail him out. He's raising money for scholarship funds. So if anybody would like to participate, I invite you to that. It's a cool event. I understand in this case, not RPD, but the sheriff will be there, and they may be bringing some horses. I think everyone knows at Damonte Ranch, their, what do you call it? Their emblem is the Mustang. So they are the Mustangs. So that's why they came up with the crowd concept, the horses, the whole thing. So I think it'll be a really neat event. He'll be out there for 27 hours. He'll be sleeping out there, eating out there. He'll be apparently teaching the class out there. So it should be pretty fun. The other thing I wanted to mention.
What, Nick, I'm sorry, can I just say, this is Mara, can I just say something?
Of course, that's why you're here.
Thank you. It's actually called Crashing in the Corral.
Crashing in the Corral.
Crashing the Corral. This is the 3rd year he's doing it. And while it's a fun event, it's a serious event because it's really to raise money for the Damonte Ranch Scholarship Fund for those seniors who apply for scholarships to go on to colleges. So like Councilman Doer said, if you're in the neighborhood, they're collecting coins. We stand out in the mornings and afternoons to collect coins. And there's going to be a barbecue on Thursday night with a band and everything. And it's, yeah, thank you for bringing it up. It's great. And we're so grateful to Principal Bell for being a good sport and doing it. The seniors actually vote on a costume that he was going to wear, and last year he wore a Wonder Woman costume. Like, he's a good sport about the whole thing. But yeah, Crashing in the Corral is what it's called.
Okay, Very cool. You know, I think it's open to anybody that would like to donate. Again, they are collecting money for scholarships for Damonte Ranch High School students to go on to college. You know, possibly the UNR. See, I think there was one more thing I wanted to tell the group about. Just see here. I think that's it for right now. I'm sure more will come up. I think last time I reported that 100 volunteers joined us and planted 60 trees at the Horizon View Park, 2 hours. So that was pretty amazing. And since then, we had one other event, and that was, we have a discounted tree giveaway. And that happened about, I want to say about a week ago. It's a classic thing. We gave away 300 discounted trees. And as soon as we put this out on the internet, within 24 hours, 48 hours, all trees were accounted for. So I think both these events, if you look at them in whole, there's a great interest in increasing our tree canopy, and people like to do it for cheaper. And the city is supporting and subsidizing that. It's actually in part my council funds. And then there's a great interest in getting rid of trash. And again, I've had to pay for those because we don't get those for free or anything. So I've used my council funds to pay for the hazardous and weedy waste. And then if we want to do more than 5 bins from waste management, we have to pay for those. So I've kind of prioritized my money. I'm just sharing the little bit of money we have towards things I think the residents are interested in and will get something out of. And that's kind of how I try to roll. So, so that ends my report. So thank you, Christy.
Thank you, Naomi. Good stuff there. With that, we'll move on to A6 and kick it over to Nick for the staff liaison report.
Okay, I got a couple of updates in that there are no updates. Meaning, I think the NAB had asked about cannabis lounges the last time from our business license division, the folks working on that. They are working on working with stakeholders to get an update on that, but there is no update to share at this time. And then the same is true for the Parks, Rec, and Open Space that everyone had asked about last time. So I think we can expect to hear an update probably around January. And then I know that there was an outstanding question regarding warehouses and their locations. I think it was actually Tyler Langdon that asked about that, but I was hoping Joey could provide some insight there. He's got the allowable uses that I can share on the screen. If you just give me 1 second.
Yeah, hi everyone. Joey Winter with Development Services. I've been here before. I don't think I've seen all of you, so it's nice to meet some of you. And Nick had just reached out about a question of where warehouses are allowed. And I'll try to make this as exciting as possible, reading the zoning code, but there's a table in the zoning code. And it's kind of hard to see on the screen here, but warehouse or distribution center is the official use. Essentially, the zoning districts are in that big blue band across the top. Anything that's blank, it's not allowed at all. Anything with a P in it, it is permitted by right or allowed by right. And anything with a C would require a conditional use permit, like the Riding Center has today, where they would need to go through that entitlement process. So on your screen here, there's sort of 4 big columns, essentially residential, warehouses not allowed, mixed use, very limited. And then there's employment and some special districts. Essentially within Ward 2, there's mixed use suburban zoning, industrial commercial, mixed employment, and mixed use airport, where there's potentially could just be allowed by right with no additional oversight or additional entitlement review.
Let me ask you, Joey, this is pretty hard to read.
Yeah.
So is it possible that you could send over a link where this table is over to Nick and he could send it out to the group?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think
I already sent it on and we can get it out.
Oh, you did get it. Okay. Well, you got it already. So that's good to know that you actually.
I'll make sure to distribute a digital copy and maybe at the same time, in order for you to actually understand where some of these mixed use or whatnot is, I can send you the maps and look at that as well.
So yeah, and Nick, I can follow up on that. Essentially, the 2 main areas where it would be allowed, permitted by right with no additional oversight within Ward 2 is that area south of the airport. And then on South Virginia Street, there's a lot of the MS or mixed use suburban zoning down there. And then additionally some industrial zoning. So those are the 2 main areas. The one caveat on this, as always, because it's zoning, is there's several large, what's called planned unit developments, Damani Ranch, South Meadows. Those have their own plan of where it's allowed within that. And it's hard to go through in detail and specifically say, this is where it's allowed within those. But if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to elaborate on it, or any confusion reading either the handbooks or reading this blurry chart, I'd be happy to elaborate.
Sorry, I have one question. You mentioned it's allowed south of the airport. Could you elaborate?
Yeah, that's correct. Wherever this zoning would be the base zoning. So it's south of that runway, the runway that runs north-south.
Yeah.
There's a mix of the mixed-use airport and industrial commercial, I believe it is, zoning there. And then this is, in a perfect world, obviously, if you're chopping down a mountain to build a warehouse, there's other things that come in. Or if you're right next to residential, that's an additional level of review, which is not captured, but just the question, as I understood from Nick, was in general, what base zoning allows it. There's two main areas within Ward 2.
I recall Mimi actually asking about this too. And I think she was looking for a map of Ward 2 that would have the industrial uses plotted. Does that exist?
The existing industrial uses or the potential for it?
Not well.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever zoned that would allow it.
Yeah, we could certainly, there's a zoning map where you're just looking for these 5, it's actually 6, but there's no MD, UD anywhere near, that's the University District anywhere near Ward 2. But if you know which colors to look for on the map, and you have the map, which is pretty easy to access, we can get a link out.
Do you think that we can send that one out? Because sometimes it's, this is really awesome. And then a complimentary map with the actual picture of where the zoning is would be really helpful.
We'll get that all out.
Yeah, and I'll talk to our GIS analyst to see if we can make something prettier than standard. And this document's available to the public. The zoning map's available to the public. But since it asked, I figured I know where to look, so I put them together.
So I have a quick follow-up question. And this is for the whole the NAB to know. That area that you mentioned just south of the runway, previously known as Home Gardens, is airport property. They bought it, I don't know, decades ago. And there is a permit that's been issued on it for clearing and grading to build what you just said, industrial professional office complex. And they just called me today, and I meant to mention this, that they were fencing that today and tomorrow. They're doing a tree inventory, and they're planning to start clearing and grading as soon as Thursday. So I thought this would be a good place to just let you know, because I know that when people see that activity, they'll start asking questions. And and you said it's
here about the right away.
What's that?
Weren't they here considered right away?
I think they did come here.
There was a road that needed to be condemned.
A road, an easement through the whole property.
There was an old road that needed to be abandoned. That's what I was saying.
The abandonment.
Yeah.
Road abandonment came to us.
Yeah.
And I didn't recall, Joey, if they had a change of zoning. And I don't know if you know.
No, the zoning exists there. It's airport owned property, and it was zoned that mixed use airport. And that's correct. It was like 6 months ago that the abandonment came through to abandon an unimproved city right away through that site. Subsequently, the parcels were combined. I think it was just the parcels on both sides of the former right of way. And then it's now a mixed use airport zone site where permits can come in to develop warehouses.
So say what the name of it is. It's mixed employment, or it's mixed?
It's mixed use airport.
Mixed use airport, and that's its own special classification.
Correct, and it's MA if you look at like the abbreviation.
MA.
And that's like the blue hatched area on the map that you'll see when we send out
the link to it.
When we send out the link to it, yeah.
Okay, but I know that everyone here is always wanting to know what's going on in the ward, you know, what kind of developments, and so that came a long time ago for road abandonment, but the construction is supposed to start, well, the clearing and grading soon.
They put a trailer out there on Monday.
What's that?
They put a construction trailer out there on Monday morning.
Okay.
I drive by there every day.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Well, that is what's going on. Okay.
Okay, any questions about that? And then the last update I have before I let everyone move on, I have accepted a promotion at the city. This is my last meeting.
Congratulations.
He's working as the government affairs person for the city, and I'm very excited.
Very cool. Congrats, Nick.
Congratulations.
And if Nick didn't announce it, I was gonna announce it. So I don't know if everybody knows what that means, but you'll be working with Callie.
Yep.
Some of you may know Callie. She's what is her?
So she is the director of policy and strategy, and many of you probably know her because she also used to be Councilmember Dewar's liaison. So
yeah,
clearly there's a pipeline of greatness.
Well, I've never seen anybody either analyze housing or do a cleanup like Nick.
We've done a great job.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Nick.
Thank you very much. That's it for me.
On that somber note, I guess we'll keep going.
That's a good question. Is there a transition plan? They asked.
There's definitely a transition plan. Although I am leaving and a couple of my colleagues are also leaving, there are some consistents. So we have Jenica Finnegan, who is one of the community liaisons, and then we have an administrative assistant to mayor and the council. And he will also be able to fill in for some of those gaps as we look for replacements. What's that?
Why is everyone leaving?
Well, the city is doing a very good job of promoting the talent that they think is within.
So Amy Pennington?
Amy Pennington has accepted a role as management analyst in public works, and she'll be working to help do some of the public outreach with things like placemaking and whatnot. And
then you mentioned the mayor's, you mentioned Jenica, who is subbing in with the mayor. But then you mentioned another position.
There's also Tristan, who helps with all things scheduling. He's always been that's been serving in that role, and so he'll just be taking on a little bit additional. And although they will not be taking on a whole bunch of leadership opportunities, we do have a couple of interns that have been helping a lot with some of the administrative work.
Congrats again, sir. Great stuff. Okay. With that, we'll move on to our business items, and the first one being the Reno Fire Department report on fuels mitigation and fire season. Information item only.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. My name is Trey Palmer. I'm the fire marshal for Reno Fire Department. This is Brad Jensen, battalion chief for the whole South region, your ward. And so I was asked to come today to kind of update you on what we're doing about wildfire mitigation. A lot of this is not in your ward, but it boundaries your ward. So that's why I think there's such an interest out there to kind of see what we're doing, because as we all know, wildfire won't stop when it starts to go. So just an update, Rosewood Canyon, up off of Skyline there, we have completed 50% fuel reduction in those 3 parts of the canyon. We finished that in September. We plan on putting pre-emergent down here in November along the defensible space areas along the houses. And we plan on bringing back the goats in April to do a little cleanup. We do have some extra money from the original grant. This was all federal funded, so it didn't cost the city taxpayer anything. We were able to get this from a grant that we've been trying to get 5 years ago. So it's finally coming to completion, so we're almost there, and we'll be working again over there in April. We have applied for numerous other grants, 2 of them specifically for wildfire mitigation. We've applied for a regional community wildfire protection planning process with the county. Basically what that is, if we get it, we will have a third-party company coming in and analyzing the entire county and making a regional community or a community wildfire protection plan to identify the high hazard areas. And that'll include your ward as well. And once we get that regional plan in place, then we can go to the homeowners associations and refine it. So these HOAs will have access to grants on their own to get some money to do their own fuel mitigation. So it's a kind of a gigantic step to push the HOAs into getting some free money to get some of this money that's out there in the federal government to get these things done. The other part of the plan that we're applying for is a wildfire mitigation plan in Northwest Reno at the base of Peavine. I know that's not in your ward, but again, fire and the smoke, we want to keep everybody clean there. And if we get that, that involves 100 acres of a cleanup in that area. And then we have other little things that we're looking at. We had the dumpster program that we had the last 2 years that we offered to citizens for free. to do cleanup, taking evergreens and stuff away from their houses to provide some defensible space. That grant did finish up here in September. We used all the funding for that. So we're trying to get some more funding through Waste Management, who's been very good with us to supply us free dumpsters. So hopefully we'll continue that again next year, starting in April. And with that, and we continue to work with NV Energy too. If anybody in your areas have concerns with a large amount of growth or dead vegetation underneath power lines or within 1,000 feet of power lines, NV Energy has access to money to clean those up and personnel. So all you got to do is give me a call and I'll give NV Energy a call. But they've been very good to us lately on helping us clean up some of those areas. And with that, that's pretty much an update on the wildfire mitigation. Operational wise, do we have anything?
A couple of things that I'm Brad Jensen, Battalion Chief, like you said, so I have everything south of the river. A couple of things that impact you guys directly. We've had an increase in personnel. We've opened another unit here, right down here on Moana, which provides specifically medical response, paramedic response, which just adds to what's already down here. We also have plans to add another truck company. What that means is another 4-person firefighting company. And we're trying to figure out if it will be in your award. We're just trying to figure out where it's going to be placed right now, strategically. So operational wise, that's kind of what we're doing from that standpoint. Just to dovetail off of what Fire Marshal Palmer was saying, why mitigation is so important. The best fire to go to is the one that doesn't happen. So by putting money up front, putting resources up front to especially the Skyline area coming this way, when we can take care of those ladder fuels, the fuels that keep propagating, especially with the winds we have, if we can reduce those, then that's less carry fuel that we have coming toward the home. So we don't have the catastrophic fires we've had almost in the winter time the last couple of years. So that's why those programs are so important.
Yeah, and on top of that, it buys us time to get there. As you know, the Pine Fire moved extremely fast. The Fallen Fire moved extremely fast because of the winds. With the 50% fuel reduction, that buys us that time to get in place and help protect the home. So that's what we're concentrating on right now. We're learning from our mistakes, but also California's mistakes and trying to protect us from that happening. So
I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned most of the several things that you mentioned federally derived funds generally.
Yes.
Right. So seems to me, I mean, especially for people who, when the fires came racing down toward Bartley and the canyons that you were referring to up on the Skyline, some years ago, as I recall, that whole area was pretty tragic and scary.
Yes.
And I'm wondering about, I realize we've had more federal funding available for certain things because of the political environment and everything that, But is there no base funding or proactive work like what you do that comes from however your funding is generated, which I don't know.
Yeah, and so we keep trying every year. I'll say that. We have a budget that we have to fall into, and every year we request funding for different things. Firefighters, what's from the city? Yes, I'm sorry, the city from our base tax base. Correct. But then understand that the funding is pretty limited, and so there's priorities that are determined by the city manager, by city council, and by our fire chief. But I can tell you that our fire chief is been proactive with this for many years, and he's always, in fact, I don't know if I should give out some of this information, but I will tell you that he is working on a plan to get a mitigation crew in place, so we have our own staff to start mitigating these high hazard areas, and he's working on different funding sources that doesn't come from the city pot, money from NV Energy, for example, and some other private entities that have that funding, including the grants, not necessarily federal, but others. But he's well aware of that. I'm well aware of that. Brad's well aware of that. And trust me, this is something that we dip into all the time, and we know what we need to do. But again, everybody is fighting for those funds,
Well,
yeah.
With everybody else, and all we, the citizens, care about is, we need more firefighters, we need more police. All true, but we didn't need so many firefighters. We didn't need so many fires. It seems to me that what you're doing, Ron, like what you just mentioned about having your own mitigation. I mean, I think it would be excellent.
I do too, and I think a lot of people do, and that is the push right now. So we're hoping a year from now, if I'm up here talking to you, we'll have a team of 5
Maybe
people.
we need to start some fundraising drives to help you out sometime.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that sort of thing works. But
and we have identified some funding sources that we are working on. I will tell you that. And so again, we're working on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Any other questions for me, for Brad?
That's from the NAB. Wonderful. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
With that, in order to maintain equitability between the departments, of course, we would want the police department to go next, but that will require a change to the agenda, to which any motions out there to bump up item B3 next so that RPD has a chance to speak.
This is Mara. I'll make a motion to bump up RPD.
Thank you. Any second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Wonderful. We will change the agenda. Next up will be B3. And there'll be discussion of street racing and sideshows in South Reno. Sir, if you're ready.
Hello, Brian Diamond with Lieutenant for Reno PDA. I was here, I think, in August. That's all right. Yep. So we've done, Councilman Dewar asked us to come here and talk about our last operation. We did it on September 30th. We had, I'll just go over the stats real quick. We had 2 felony arrests, 10 misdemeanor arrests, 33 citations, and 14 cars were towed. That was a Friday night. That's the sideshows 775 that has been plaguing everybody down here. I think there was about 60 some odd cops regionally that worked into that, and it kind of where it originated. Started up at the Knoll, the Walmart up there, up in the North Valleys, up in London. And they kind of bounce all around some of these big spots. And actually, there was an incident of civil unrest at Bedford, Virginia. About 100 cars. They took over the intersection. It was about 500 people. We got to a local field force kind of thing, like a riot control situation, and we ended up getting we deployed tear gas, which was extremely effective. And that was kind of the worst we've seen it all summer. So I don't know if anyone has any questions about that specifically, or street racers in general specifically that I can answer.
Real quick, sir. Mary Marshall, were you able to hear that that update? Any questions for the officer?
No questions, but we did hear it. Thank you.
Okay, good deal. Thank you.
I wasn't able to hear, how many arrests did you say were made?
There was 2 felony arrests and 10 misdemeanor arrests. So 12 total and 33 citations on top of that.
And that's just from the one operation?
That's from just that Friday night into Saturday morning.
So hundreds of participants took over the intersection. And was it that, I mean, it seems like there would be a lot of people in town.
Well, so because all these crimes are considered misdemeanors, there's a set of rules we have to follow to this. So we can't just, what everyone here is thinking in the common sense approach would be to surround them all with a bunch of cops and then arrest them one by one, right? And then tow all their cars. And that would be the simple solution. We are not allowed to do that. So you can't encompass, that would be like a barricade or essentially a roadblock. And we're not allowed to do that because it's a misdemeanor. We're also not allowed to do that because of the size of it. So we have, because of the, let's say it's they're doing their thing, we have to give 3 warnings in multiple languages with a certain amount of time, allow them an area of egress and appropriate amount of time to do that before we can deploy anything. This is one of the legislative updates that came out of the George Floyd rules. So that was adopted by Nevada and pretty much every other state where it really kind of, they were thinking more the let's not have this happen again, during riot stuff, but it has a cost associated to it. Also, because these are all considered misdemeanors, we're very limited in our capabilities of what we can do, both with staffing concerns plus legally. It is my hope, and I probably won't be around for it, but we'll have to have a legislative update to elevate the level of classification of crime to gross misdemeanor or felony, and that will change our ability to enforce it.
I mean, and this is just, I guess, another reason that I don't understand, of course. What makes it be just to go away, asking to go away this as opposed to real civil unrest? Does there have to be an actual harm involved?
So 3 warnings is if there is no active damage to anything or someone's at risk. There's only 1 warning required, it's just simply property damage, and then there's no warnings required if there's a T1 danger. And that's the problem. So also, so that Sunday, there were street racers again on Saturday night, which I think probably most people that could hear Lakeside and McCarran or have driven through it have seen the evidence of it. They had the intersection for about an hour. Our traffic unit, which is primarily the people that do enforcement in this, was obligated to a half marathon that Sunday. And so they can't, there's only so many cops, and you can't work 24/7. Swing shift got held over twice. So in addition to graveyard, swing shift was over, plus all the other people. And so most of the swing shift people worked, I think, about 35 over 48 hours between Friday and Saturday. And so we're getting to a point of kind of critical mass with staffing to where we can, like, you know, I mean, there's about 80 less cops than when I got hired almost 20 years ago. Our population is almost double. So if you do the math on that, there's not a lot of it.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is there any way to upgrade the title for the sideshows to something different other than what we have it at right now? I mean, these people are committing acts of terrorism. They're terrorizing people. If we come up with a different label, and maybe that we can categorize that in a different fine. So I'm just curious about that.
No, it wouldn't meet the statutory definition for terrorism. Although everyone feels terrorized, that's not how it would be classified.
I'm using it as an example. I know that word's extreme, but I don't think we're really impacting. I heard these people Saturday night from Ward 3, and I just don't think we're impacting them. I don't think they respect the police.
They don't. They have no respect. That's actually some of the draw. So these people, everyone, I don't know if they know this or not, but the younger gentleman, Marshall, I believe, Culpepper, said give them a place to just beat it up and we'll deal with it later. That's not what these guys want. They want to take over the freeways. They want to take over intersections. They post these videos on social media. They get enough hits. They get advertising money, and now they're funded. So it's kind of its own self-perpetuating problem.
And we can't bring in any kind of military to work with our city to alleviate some of this. I mean, these people reached inside a woman's car and tried to drag her dog out.
I don't think we're gonna, the last time I saw the National Guard was during the fallen fires.
If I could ask the question differently, as concerned citizens, what are some of the recommended courses of action you think that we could take to advocate, I don't know, for RPD or legislative changes to help?
It has to be a legislative change. There's no current solution I'm aware of, and I've been racking my brain on this. Even though traditionally I don't work this because I'm off Friday and Saturday nights, but because I'm in charge of the SWAT team, I have been deployed on these over and over again for rescue task forces. So if someone does get trapped in a car or something like that, we can try to save that citizen. We're outnumbered about 8 or 10 to 1. Even if we arrest them, they're out in a couple hours. We can't tow their cars unless we arrest them and their car happens. Like, we have all these rules and we're the only ones following the rules. If we don't follow the rules, their criminal case gets dismissed and then they can sue us for wrongful arrest, and then we're costing more taxpayer money. So the angry resident in me says, go to Home Depot, buy a couple boxes of deck screws and sprinkle them out to all the spots they go, and get some tear gas and throw it out every time they stop. That's not realistic, and that's not a government solution. And so I've talked to my peers, I've talked to a lot of other people, and I've been racking my brain. usually I'm pretty good at solving a problem. I can't think of something that fits within our established parameters currently. I think if we elevate it to spectating became a felony or gross misdemeanor for first offense, felony for a subsequent offense, that kind of opens up some of our capabilities as far as case law, the surrounding and the arresting and things like that. I know they don't like to ask because we actually mobilized in a crowd management formation to Lakeside and McCarran. And as we started the announcements, they all left. They even put out on social media that we monitor the Reno P up their game. We'll call it for the night. They left and we didn't have anything. So, but it's not, we're the tip of the spear, so we always get the scrutiny in the limelight. But when you arrest someone for misdemeanor, reckless driving, spectating, and they're out in 2 hours, that's not a police problem, that's a court problem, that's a jail problem. Jails are overcrowded, prosecutors are overworked, understaffed. So it's just like the systemic problem. We're just the bad guys because we're always there.
Do you know, are there any active campaigns, or is this something that we need to be like a grassroots petition to state legislators?
I think everyone, so this has happened in the Bay Area and California as well, to where they've been doing it for years. One of our regional units as a supervisor was going to go down to Oakland and talk to them about some of the stuff they've done. Some of the things I've heard are not legal or would not fly here in Nevada. So I don't know how they think they're going to be better than California, which is usually more restrictive than us. But yes, I encourage you to tell everyone, go to your legislators, get the classifications of crime bumped up, and that's going to enhance our capabilities to address the problem.
Thank you.
I'm interested in public safety around these events. We need to start educating people on when they see this kind of stuff happening, they need to turn around and head the other way. Not try to force their way through or make it a scene or right. They just need to turn around and go back the other way. But what time? These things follow a pattern. They gather, they drive somewhere to an intersection and they start doing what they're doing. What time usually does that, is it between midnight and 2 a.m.?
It's usually, generally speaking, they start around 10 or 11 p.m. and they kind of have a couple of meeting spots. They don't necessarily race or do anything illegal at that point. They're just kind of congregating. And then as they travel to and from, usually they'll do something or they'll drop something on social media. It's almost like a flash mob for those of us that remember that. They set up, they run the intersection, and once we show up, they leave. They've had their fun. It's 10 or 15 minutes before we assemble and go in force. Then they go to the next intersection and they'll just kind of like, they can social media drop it. Even if we're monitoring it and we get that information, it's still, you know, for us to, so as an example, if I have 10 officers and I have an undercover calling out, kind of like as a spotter says, hey, that black car just did this. Well, we have to follow away from the crowd because we don't want to generate some sort of civil unrest within the crowd. So as they're going in transit, we would pick that off. And then we have to have officers to, you know, write the citation, take them to jail, wait for a tow. All these things take time. Well, now I have 3 or 4 or less officers. So to stop these 12 cars, or sorry, it's actually 55 cars or 45 cars for the site or the arrest. But if we do a physical arrest of someone, that takes a couple bodies outside of our stables for an hour minimum. So if I stop 3 cars to arrest somebody because that's what everybody wants to see is some a consequence for it, I've just completed my mission effectiveness because now everybody's tied up on a jail or waiting for a tow or something like that. And then they can run an intersection, which is what happened on October 1st at Lakeside McCarran. They had it for over an hour. And it's just because we were scattered and we didn't have the resources.
Was anyone hurt in this?
Yes, a juvenile was hit by a truck with donuts at Lakeside McCarran. The traffic division was able to follow up and make an arrest for felony hit and run and towed the car.
Virginia history that said there was, you said there was an altercation. No, assaults directed towards responding officers.
Yes. So when they made the line for like the crowd management formation, that's ride control. It's a mystic term for it, but so we were doing our field force, and they charged the line like just blatant disrespect and disregard for authority, general lawlessness. So that's when the gas got deployed, and they don't like that. I don't like it either. So I have a mask.
But nobody was hurt. You guys weren't hurt.
People threw bottles at us, we were looking at arrest after the fact, because there was some, the good thing about downtown is everything's on camera. And so some of the local casinos and some city cameras captured decent surveillance. We were able to follow up, identify the person who arrested one of the instigators.
Thank you for the work.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. I'm not gonna lie. It's awful. I would need, if I could wave a magic wand, I need about 200 cops to deal with it. And I don't hold our staffing just in case anyone's curious about it. But I got hired in 2003. We had around 350, and then our population was about 330,000, give or take, from the website I just looked up. Currently, we have 324 sworn, and so a lot less cops, and the population estimate is about 520,000. So not quite double, but almost, and then a lot less cops. And so if you do that math, it's a bad trajectory. And when these kinds of events happen, well, we all want a piece of the same pie. I get that, but it's one of those things like, and we've talked to council. We've been trying to bolster our numbers because of this in my group. So I got hired on 3 academies. We did 3 academies every year until the downturn in 08. So all those people are coming up to where they can term out and retire. So we have the potential for a giant exodus. And so that's what city officials and our management is working with to kind of bolster hiring. To hire a cop, not counting background, takes a year for them from the academy to a serviceable police officer by himself on the street, able to make calls and help people, is a year. In that year, people retire, people get hurt, people otherwise leave, or people aren't successful. It's a difficult job, and some people don't really like it once they start doing it. And so if I hired 10 cops in that year, I would probably have 5 of that 10. And in that same year, I probably lost another 5 to 10 from attrition of some form. So it's kind of, that's why our curve is difficult to deal with. So we essentially need to overhire, but no one likes that because it costs a lot of money for people that aren't going to be employed long term.
Well, we sure appreciate the work you do.
Yes, it's definitely an uphill battle on this. And I joke with Sergeant Lopez because he's the South area sergeant on Graveyard. And yeah, I can fix this for me. I'm on it. So I'll express his gratitude to him, his boss. Any other questions?
From the NAB. Thank you, sir. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Lieutenant.
With that, let's move on to item B2. Following discussion of Ward 2 community cleanups. Look for you, Nick.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add. I think Councilmember Dewar did a good job of kind of summarizing what we had happen this weekend, but clearly there is a lot of love for the hazardous meat waste pickups. I will tell you, I walked from the front of that line. I know she said 200 cars, but like it's crazy to actually see. I walked from the front of the line to the very back, and it took me 7 minutes walking pretty like briskly to get to the very back of that line. I will say, I think, you know, there's definitely a need for this in the community. So I tell them now that they should continue to ask for them, and people will use them. Last thing. They're also just generally, they are much easier for city staff to maintain and operate because we have the hero environmental staff there with us to help figure out what trash is accepted and what's not compared to waste management. You know? So much easier and much more used.
Wonderful.
Works very well.
Appreciate your quarterbacking that, and we'll have the record show that Councilwoman Dewar stole most of your thunder. Okay. Going away, President. All right.
Thanks for money to be fair.
That's it. Okay. With that, we'll move on to item B4 development projects and get to the only one on the agenda today, which is B41, the Center for Adaptive Writing, Therapeutic Writing Center, item LDC 23-00011. With that, please.
Let me bring up your presentation. 1 second. Okay, we should be good to go. I lied to you about the clicker. I'll have to go for it.
Okay, so do you want me up front?
Up front would be great, thank you. And with that, were you able to capture the questions that Candy had up front?
Yes, I think I have most of them.
Okay.
I will try to address all of them. So I'm Nikki Landa, I'm the Executive Director of Center for Adaptive Writing. And in the back, I have Scott Hooper. He is helping with our veterans programming and board member as well. So our mission at the Center for Adaptive Writing is to empower people of all abilities through equine assisted services. The center actually has been around in Reno since 2007. So we are wrapping up our 15th year. And our vision is to be an inclusive community to promote the physical, cognitive, emotional, and social well-being for people of all abilities through equine assisted programs. So our programs, our main program right now is our therapeutic writing. This is for children and adults with disabilities. Right now, we have 20 participants in our program. We are working on expanding our veterans program. So that's our horsemanship for heroes. The last 2 years, we've averaged 1 to 3 veterans per session. We are hoping to get 6 to 8 per session. And then roughly once a month for 6 months of the year, we have one Girl Scout troop come out for a 2-hour event to earn their horse badge with us. So we are fairly small. So the benefits, sorry, I don't know why I thought.
I converted it to PDF.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
No, you're so there's so many benefits. We are much more than just a pony ride, and we are a little bit different than traditional lessons. We are certified instructors, so we really tailor our lessons to our adaptive riding clients, and we incorporate their goals in there. So there's lots of benefits. I'm happy to chat more about the benefits, but I won't spend a lot of time on it tonight. And horses, why do we use horses? So horses are nonverbal, they communicate, so we get to partner them with our students and they can learn how to communicate. A lot of them are nonverbal, so they get to work with an animal who communicates that way. They provide immediate feedback if a rider is having some anxiousness, nervousness, that is going to provide feedback. They are sensitive, they're social, and they're just amazing and provide huge benefits to our riders. A lot of the physical benefits, they mimic at the walk, they mimic a human walking gait as well. So lots of physical benefits there. So about our location and why I'm here today. So the center started in 2007 in a backyard. Expanded, outgrew the backyard. We moved up to Horseman's Park in 2015 for 5 years. The center had tried to expand up at Horseman's Park and were unsuccessful, and it was not sustainable for us to trade our horses back and forth from where that we were keeping them to do lessons up at Horseman's Park. So I was on the hunt for a permanent home for us. So in 2001, we moved to ML Ranch. So we are off of Huff Acre right now. This is a 8-acre ranch that we lease right now. We were trying to purchase it and we're unsuccessful. So that is why and how we came about this property at Boggy Lane, which was formerly known as Avalon Farms. So why Boggy Lane? Why are we looking to move? So this is an established facility. These are photos of the current facility. So we would use, it's about 3.5 acres. So the parcel to the north of the main one, right now that is all weeds, got some panels falling down, it's not used. We would come in and clean it up. But the big draw for us is this indoor arena. We would not have to do construction. Where we're at, we do not have an indoor arena. This gets tricky with our riders. Consistency is so important. So having an indoor arena would allow that, especially riders who have autism when we have to cancel because all of a sudden it's raining or snowing. And then we have one lesson a week to cancel. It's just really hard on them. We don't get to reach their goals. So that indoor arena is the big draw to us. And then being accessible in Reno, I know you mentioned kids and horses, they are further away and there's a huge need for our services. actually have a wait list of over 60 people right now. So there's a big need, a big push for recreational opportunities for people with special needs. So we are a commercial stable, so that is why we are applying for this conditional use permit. And the center is going to work on improving this property and upkeeping it. We are a premier accredited center through what is called PATH International, so the Professional Association of Therapeutic Horsemanship. So with premier accredited, we have over 100 standards that we do follow. So upkeeping the property, maintenance, you know, like I mentioned, that acre lot that is just all weeds, we would really work on that. And then I'm working with the city through this process and learning things that we will have to address. One of them at the rear of the property, we will be putting up a 6-foot screening, which I believe backs up to your property. So that's a requirement, looking at those buildings that we will have to take down. So working on meeting all the requirements from the city as well. So yes, oh, and traffic, I know that was a big one. Okay, a couple things. Traffic, I'll try to address all those concerns. Right now, average, we are 4 vehicles per day. That's our average. We're very minimal traffic, being that we only have 19 riders a week. It's very little. We do not operate Sunday, Monday. So we operate lessons Tuesday through Saturday. And then our sessions usually are 6 to 8 weeks in length. And then we do take 2 weeks off. So no lessons during those 2 weeks as well. So that's a big one. And then I'm working with the current property homeowners for converting the septic to city. And then we are in discussions about the water as well. So that was something that I'm working with the current property owners on.
Can you back up there for a second? Yeah. The current property is on septic?
It is on septic, yeah. And they already have plans drawn up and are getting bids to convert it to city.
So that's in the process.
It is in the process, yeah.
And the water is well water?
It is well, yeah.
But you said there were plans to convert that as well?
We are in discussions with that. That was brought to our attention. And so I'm working with the current property owners.
Okay. Just based off of the current operations, any rough order magnitude of water consumption?
Don't know that off the top of my head. We are on city water where we're at, so I could pull that up. We do have right now, so we have 9 horses. 3 of those are mini, so we would average about 9 horses roughly going forward.
The room in the indoor arena, how much room is there for your horses?
So there are 12 stalls in that indoor arena right now.
What is the acre amount?
There's 3.5 acres, including that side 1 acre. So the main parcel is 2.5, and then there's 1 acre.
What is the 1 acre for?
We would do turnout of our horses over there.
And the owner of this property?
Same owner.
Kim?
Yes, correct.
And they do not live on the property?
They do not, no.
Can you go back to your graphic? This one that shows.
Oh yeah, that.
Yes, there in the corner. Can you point out details to me on more specific?
Yeah, so this is Bondi Lane right here. This is the entrance. There's a residence right here. There is a pasture turnout up front. There's some runs for horses here.
Hold on. Runs. And right in front is a pasture turnout?
Pasture, correct, yes. And then this is an outdoor riding arena here. And this is the indoor arena. So there are stalls with runs on this side. On the north side, there are stalls inside. They don't have runs. And then this is, from my understanding, where your property is back here. We would be putting up a screen.
So these stalls that were constructed, yes, these would come down.
Correct.
Just to make it clear, this is this area, the olive green here. That is my property. Okay. This is my home. Here are my trees. this is what we take care of. And this is what I'm kind of concerned about this acre, that this homeowner also would be concerned about this acre that was just acquired by this absentee owner.
Interesting. Okay, so from my understanding, I don't know about this acre. It is over here, this acre.
Okay, then this is Clay. This is Clay's acre. So this is the acre that you wanna put runs on this acre.
Yeah, and we would redo the fencing. We're actually already in discussion with the neighbor on the corner of Delmonte and Bonnie to redo this fencing here, and then we'll work on the panels as well. And just so to make a note as well, we will be landscaping that back, putting in trees and shrubs with that screening, and we will put in a gate and a fence at the front entrance of the property. So if anything, the horse were to get loose or anything, there would be a new fence there so the horses could not get to Bonnie.
And this owner that is just landscaped his property, is how is he about having pens, these pens?
Yes, they are good as long as we upkeep on manure, which that brings me. So we, at least once a day, if not more, we do clean up the manure, and then there is a separate over here, a little cement cylinder area where we will pile it, and then about roughly every 2 weeks we have a service private company we pay that comes in and takes the manure off site.
And is there a limitation on the number of horses?
That's, I will find out at planning commission. At where we are at right now, we were allowed 20 horses.
20 horses?
Yeah, and we are asking for 15.
I don't know how you could teach lessons, having done this kind of work, how you could teach lessons with 20 horses to handicapped children.
We were up to 15 up until June. So I have staff members that help take care of the horses, and we have volunteers who come in and help with facility maintenance, cleaning, all of that.
If you had 12 in this barn,
I would keep a couple. This is a shelter as well, a couple things there.
I'm going to ask a question here. You had 8+ acres on the ML range. Yes. Wouldn't there be some ratio of acreage to the number of horses that you could be allowed to have?
That's
three and a half acres is probably not designed to take care of 20 horses on property.
Our horses are very spoiled right now, and they get 5 acres of turnout during the day. So we only use that as a daytime part, and then we run our program and they're stalled at night on 2.5 acres. And I don't know if you notice.
No, off the top of my head, I don't know the limit, but obviously the number of horses will be something that's considered during the staff review. I'm sure it'll be a topic at the planning commission, and even if there is a limit on the number of horses, this is a conditional use permit process, a discretionary process where potentially it could be, say, the limit that exists appropriate, or it could be limited further based on site conditions. It's all in review.
I think it's important to note, though, that the number of acreages for horses, it's not that the horses are surviving off of grazing land. So it has to do with obviously our care and feeding of the horses. And even if there were up to 20, they would not all be employed at one time for the program. That is just, and we don't foresee using 20 horses. I don't, yes, is the number, but we understand we completely understand
the density goes beyond what any of the ownership. And that brings up another point. The conditional use permit says that it's for a commercial boarding stable. Would all of these horses be the handicap riding horses, or would there be other owners with boarders coming to this stable?
That's a great question. So we only fall under commercial stable, so it would be our program, not boarding private boarders.
It's not boarding, because they did mention that under here that it was a commercial stable.
There's no category for the therapeutic riding. Commercial stable, we're providing the lessons to the community members.
Yeah, that's correct. We have to pick the use that it best falls under. So commercial stable is what it falls under, although they're doing something different than what the typical stable would be.
Just for full disclosure and why I'm standing up here. This is my house right here. Right across the street from the highway. The main access, the only access for this whole, and this field is struggle feed right now. But I have probably the most impact from this operation because of all the vehicles that will be driving up and down the road that aren't currently driving up and down the road. Because previously, private owners who ordered their own horses and a couple other friends, but very little traffic on the dirt road that leads to the arena. Dust control has always been a problem. I couldn't see a way, and when it rains, mud's a problem. So there has to be an improvement on this property of paving the driveway up to the other improvement that's needed, which is the lack of parking. There is no parking space on this lot. It wasn't designed to be a commercial entity.
Yes, we are working to make it right in front of the barns ADA accessible parking.
Yeah.
And then some parking spots right by this area as well.
That will definitely require paving as well, obviously. I would think.
Nikki, you mentioned approximately 4 riders per day, 5 days a week. Are you able to quantify how many service vehicles will come in? You mentioned like the manure removal every 2 weeks. So like what kind of traffic are you anticipating?
Roughly about, I would say to average it out per day, I would say 8 vehicles per day. And that's going to be like Sunday, Monday is going to be 2 vehicles for staff to feed in the morning and night, and that's it. So it just kind of varies through that, but to average it out, probably between 6 to 8.
Given this is in the sphere of influence, just out of curiosity, would we perform a traffic study? Joe?
I'm sorry, there's triggers for if they were required to, there's sometimes just a trip generation letter. There's certain thresholds, and I don't have the application in front of me, but whatever is required will be required. We have a plan on to make sure that we're getting the data we need to properly evaluate this proposed development.
I have a question.
Yeah,
I wrote down earlier that you said 4 vehicles a day, but did you just now say 6 or 8?
That's with, so 4 vehicles is with our programming, and then 6 to 8 is including the manure removal. We have the vet out, hopefully not that often, twice a year plans, that's it. And then we only have 1 trailer, and that will be stored on the north end. So it's approximately 42 feet over here. So it's going to be kept over there.
That is a major problem. The last time one of the people brought up the fire that we had coming down from Bartley Ranch, we had to evacuate our horses. And it took a lot of trailers to get out and through that roundabout because they closed it off at the roundabout. None of the sheriffs are here right now. But you cannot say that there's going to be 20 horses in 1 trailer. That doesn't work.
That's a great point to bring up, and we can look at acquiring more trailers.
Which trailer parking is definite eyesore for all the people I worked with. People when they were in Franktown, there was a lot of problem in the Franktown community about just having all the metal trailers that they had to use. Now that's not my view. My view would be that other trailers, but the other surrounding residential owners, which because I've been out of the country and I just got this postcard, I have not talked to all my neighbors, only the McCarrs, but there are other neighbors that are impacted in addition to, I'm sorry that I can't read that, Mr. Fisher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a great point. So we are holding a community meeting on Saturday. I hope you receive my letter and know we invited all of the letters. So everyone who's notified of our project, I mailed out an introductory letter about our program. And on Saturday, we're holding a community meeting, inviting them to come out, see the facilities, ask us questions, bring their concerns, have a conversation.
Just for a sense of scale, how tall are those trees that we can see lining the driveway and on the far edge of the property? How tall is that?
Scott, can you have a guess to that? Oh,
They're
they're
pretty big.
The ones right across
The ones that run right up the center there to the building.
Yeah.
right here,
They're
probably.
I mean, they're like, they've
Those-
been there a while. I think you probably know better than me.
Those don't.
I was just curious if those come into play at all when it came to the eyesore, should there be trailers parked on that side?
That these cover would block that.
When is the community meeting?
Saturday,
I know, but when?
2 p.m.
Where's that?
It will be at the indoor arena.
And is the owner, Ms. Jen, is she present for any of these things?
Their property manager, Lillian, she will be there, and she's present.
Lillian lives near or is on this property?
Yeah, she's not on it. She lives near. She manages it for them. Happy to give you her contact information.
I'm not seeing those people on the property at all. There every day.
Patrick Fisher for the record. We've had interactions with them often because they made the ranch house, which is directly across the street from my house, Airbnb. So we had air burners there for Burning Man with multiple trailers, 30-some bikes sitting out in the front yard, all hours of stuff going on. What's happening here is that the property owner is trying to recoup his investment or their investment if it's a corporate type of thing. But I'm also aware that he's made offers to the Myers, which are directly south of the property and the original owners of this property. He's made approaches to them about selling their current property. So he's trying to take over this entire parcel. The more leeway that is given in changing these parcels into money-making ventures just prolongs the development potential of the property long enough to get it into the city of Reno and do other things. But I think what's happening is some good maintenance of the property itself. It's not falling into disrepair. It's not, but they're definitely trying to establish commercial ventures on the property.
And I'm afraid that may have been represented that way. The Chins owned a very short time, and then perhaps they think that they were allowed to run a commercial venture.
Yeah, I haven't spoken to the owners.
Well, and I'm going to weigh in here just for a minute. I had made an inquiry about whether this property was under the city or the county for the short-term rental STR, the Airbnb, like whose responsibility is it? Because the county has regulations, the city doesn't. And so even though it's in the county, they were saying that the city, since they don't have regulations, was the controlling interest because of the sphere. But I've never heard that for regulations, other than planning. Under a planning thing, yes, but we don't follow code, a code. We don't apply our code off our land, to my knowledge. So there's been quite a few emails going around about that because I made the inquiry because the inquiry came in. So I don't know what the final answer is on that.
I think it's probably helpful to understand too, and being a property owner and appreciating what happens around my home you mentioned a commercial making money motivation by the owner. We can't speak to the owner's motivation, but what we can speak to is what this conditional use permit will be allowing and enabling for the community. It's a nonprofit organization that frankly, the power of which, when you see the transformation of a disabled child or adult in connection with a horse or veterans that have served the country and in the future first responders that we saw a living example of the stress that they deal with. This is providing something back to the community and to a population in the community that desperately needs it. We absolutely will be good neighbors, and absolutely that's why we would put screening up and remove relocate those shelters that shouldn't have been there, and so we get all that, and we'd like to just to be kind of a partnership, and for the surrounding neighbors to take pride in the fact that it's in your backyard and in your community. And it's certainly not like there's going to be horse shows and things going on, loud noises and tons of cars, because the class sizes have to be small because of the type of work that we're doing. So I just ask you to keep that in mind, and I didn't know what discounts, what your concerns are, but at least from the organization, which the permit would go to, it's where we stand. It's all about, what's right, and certainly following all the rules, why we all do this, and want to communicate that.
I guess I missed this. So is there an organization buying this property?
Leasing.
And to be clear, the permit goes to you, the operator. It is not tied to the owner of the property itself.
Correct. Yes, specific for Center for Deaf.
Well,
right.
Is it terrible for you to ask what kind of terms you're talking about? Longevity terms?
3 to 5 years.
So I just want to clarify for the board that a conditional use permit would run with the property. So if it's a 3 to 5 year term, when that term's up, if a new organization were to move in, there's potential to use a commercial stable under that existing permit. It's not a permit specifically to this organization.
That is my concern that we have for the neighborhood values. It is not a question of whether adaptive riding is a valuable thing. There's no question. It's a question of whether this location, under the circumstances of being in a residential neighborhood and backing to all of us in residential housing, is this the right use for this property, and the sale of which, lease of which to this organization is not the organization that I'm questioning. It's the people, the ownership of property, and the overall future of the property. It could be any stable, commercial property. I think so. Thank you.
I get exactly what you're saying here. So this guy has something else bigger in mind. In fact, you lease off in 3 years and we get a bigger package of land. And then you come down to the small opportunity, and once there's a commercial stable attached, it's already made that transition into commercial use. And then the next guy can go, oh, well, look, it's already commercial use. Now we just don't want to do a stable, we want to do something else. I think that's what you're worried about, I would guess, right?
That's exactly.
Yeah, that would be my concern. I think what you're doing is amazing. I think it's really amazing. And I was really hoping you were going to say that you had a means to purchase it, because then it would be easy to accommodate the neighbors. Have a really wonderful thing there, but
well, here's a question. I don't even know. You said that they're going to have a fence between the Airbnb and your property, but I don't even know if they can subdivide under county laws or even under our laws. How big is the whole parcel?
This main one where the Airbnb is 2.5. That one, and then to the north is 1 acre.
So this would be a planning question. To purchase it, they would have to subdivide it. So that there's 2 parcels, because the Airbnb would be separate from this parcel. And then you have
Airbnb too as part of the whole thing, right?
What's that?
Isn't the Airbnb also on the same owner's property?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. But to purchase it, they would either have to buy the whole property and buy out the Airbnb, or they'd have to subdivide, do a parcel map or something, and subdivide these 2 properties. And I don't know what rules apply,
or just stop having an Airbnb on your property and when a commercial development. I mean,
Right, I'm saying they could either buy the whole thing or they would need to parcel it. Yeah, I mean, either way, but I'm just saying, you said, why aren't you buying it? Well, right now it's one parcel.
Yeah, no, I did. I actually asked just if they were, because we said you were a nonprofit, and unfortunately we can't possibly have enough money to buy. So that's why I asked. For that, I hadn't thought to ask. When you were talking about the property was converted to septic, so they already have their own well water, so making well water go to city water, this is all depending on the owner being willing to acquire water rights to donate to the water company in order to get commercial service, and to get water service. So
the owner may have water rights. I'm pretty sure, since I serve on the board with Myers on the Lake Ditch board, they probably have some amount of water rights there. I mean, in other words, she has to have water rights in order to serve them. So there's something amongst these various parcels that does have water rights.
wow, that's interesting. Well, from the consumption negative, I have to ponder this a little bit, because to me these things are always the next step. You know, you have ownership of the property, then you tell us that you're doing it. Yeah, good idea. But we decided, oh, now he's acquired another one, and now he's got an Airbnb this corner, and he's got all these burners, you know, out of control. You know, I'm saying, I don't trust me. I guess, which I shouldn't say possibly, I did, so sorry.
So what exactly, and I'm sorry I missed the very beginning of this, what exactly are you here asking for this conditional use permit? And it's because it would be commercial next to residential?
It would be the use falls under that commercial stable under the zoning code in this zoning district. That use requires the conditional use permit. On top of that, because it's commercial use next to residential, there's a site plan review component, which gets carried into the conditional use permit. So it's one to both see how it impacts neighboring properties and then the use itself of having horses.
So, I mean, my understanding is that it was a commercial stable, so I'm a little confused.
She did not have permit or business license.
Oh, okay.
So they were just,
yeah.
What's that?
They didn't go through the entitlement process, whether there was a stable there or not. They didn't go through the proper process as this applicant is currently trying to do.
I see. See,
if she had, we would not be here.
And what is the zoning designation at North Large Lot, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So it's a weird situation. It's in the sphere of influence. It has a county zoning designation, which essentially converts to large lot residential under our code, and that's how the city evaluates.
You would annex this? I don't.
No, it's the extraterritorial. It stays in the sphere of influence.
Okay.
We apply the large lot zoning district standards to the property, which remains outside of the city limits.
We've had a few other cases like this.
And while I have the floor, I apologize, I wasn't texting, I was looking up, there's no limit on number of horses, like per acre or anything for commercial stable inherently in the zoning code. So that would, any restriction of that would be through a condition of approval for this application.
Okay, this problem of, you get a new zoning designation that says the land, so if this project completely falls apart, and then you're stuck with the zoning designation that may not actually fit for the next project.
Well, we've already seen that a few times.
Lots of times, right? So I'm wondering if, you know, if you're putting conditions on something, can you condition it so that the permit stays with the nonprofit? Is there any way to make that kind of condition separate it from the land itself?
No, there would be no way, the way conditional use permits work, they stay with the parcel, with the property. And just to clarify, this wouldn't be a zoning change. The current zoning allows for this, but they just need this special to approve this one specific commercial use on the property. It's not like it's a gas station tomorrow. If this permit goes through, it's specifically for commercial stables.
So that's what would stay, even if they went.
Correct.
Another commercial stable could come in.
As long as there's not a lapse of a certain amount of time, usually a year. a new commercial stable could move in under any approved entitlement.
But not any commercial use, like a gas
No,
station.
only a commercial stable use. That's what the request is for, and that's what the approval would be for with conditions.
And you said it's renewed annually?
No, if this tenant were to move out, it's typically 12 months where if that's sat vacant for more than 12 months, you're back to square one.
Yeah.
But if a new tenant moves in 6 months later, that's within
they do be grandfathered into it. It would not be subject to review.
It would be subject to the same conditions that are placed on this approval. Yeah.
So it wouldn't lapse. I mean, what you're saying.
It wouldn't
It'll lapse if no one takes
Yeah.
up the permit within a year, but it won't lapse if they do, and they have to follow the same exact conditions that you've applied to them.
Correct.
Hours of operation, numbers of horses, numbers of vehicles, whatever those conditions are, because it is called a conditional use permit, so therefore it has conditions.
So can you, in this conditional use, maybe this is something, if you haven't already gone through this in the past, having heard all this conversation, maybe you could think about refining the conditions that you want to ask for in terms of the number of horses. And you said you have installed at night and how many hours of turnout a day and where the hours of turnout will be in your proposed conditional use permit. You could be really specific about that to alleviate your neighbor's concerns about the impact of that. And in other words, if you did have 9 horses like you have now, then if you had a fire come in, you could probably get 9 horses out, but you have a whole time to get all 20 out, I think. In that, to trailer them all out. So, and those are the things that people, are pretty concerned about. So, because everybody around there has horses to get out. And so, if you were to maybe, instead of going for the broadest kind of thing that we might go to this size, to get this through at this point, to be able to make this forward now, propose your own conditions that are maybe limiting yourselves to just what your operation is. You know what I mean? So then, if for some reason the owner kicks you out after 3 years, you tighten that up enough so you won't leave a problem for your neighbors. Does that make sense? I mean, just like the way to approach it, because you do have a problem with water. And this, okay, you said it's currently being converted from the septic to sewer. That's actually happening.
Yes.
And though the owners have water, they have their own waste. It's still infrastructure to get water to the property, so that could be a problem. So I don't know. Do they have any actual information about the water?
I would have to talk to the property manager.
Yeah, they haven't actually put it out there like, oh, we're gonna. Do you have a name for your property manager?
Lillian, I can get you her last name. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I do have concern about the absentee owner of the property, even agreeing or extending from it, and also just simply converting this to commercial use. I mean, just
at all. I mean, your preference would be no commercial use at all, right?
Exactly that it would change. It's surrounded by residential homes. Why are we going to create commercial use in this area on this western side of Bonnie Lane? Or is there no restrictions? And then do we all just make a commercial thing because we're in the Reno sphere of influence? I mean, I have 4 acres, not do I get to put 12 houses or apartments there? This is why it's where I want to live. That's not what I want. But that's like, I want to know where we draw the line, or do we just keep inching down the street?
Well, that's a very good question. Want I share with you?
Well, I'll just say this. I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know that I don't think that the city is planning to annex. Like, we have a pretty solid line, right? In all our areas of sphere of influence.
That's correct. There's no active annexation program. It would only be a request from
Somebody could come in and request.
That's correct. But this applicant is not doing that. This is just a request for a conditional use permit, which is allowed, even though it's a residential district. Commercial stable is one of the very few commercial uses which you can get this conditional use permit rather than straight up rezoning the property and making it a commercial property. So there's no application to turn this into a commercial property where you can have all types of commercial uses. This is only a request for a commercial stable, which is already allowed under the zoning code. It's allowed on the zoning code, but you have to go through this process right now, and the effects of that stable are considered. If that makes
Two-part question. Is there zoning for private stables? If so,
I think we have a different use of that under the code. I looked through it again. I apologize, on my big computer with that table of use earlier.
Yeah.
I think commercial stable was the one type of stable. So that where you need the conditional use permit, but I know there's no permitted by right use of stable, or because let me back up. If you're asking about, sorry, like, can you have horses for yourself?
Where I'm going with it, given they are a nonprofit, I'm trying to understand why they would need a commercial designation.
I think it's obviously been looked at by Ms. Broccoli, who's the case planner, and we only have a certain number of holes that you can put the peg into in the code. And this, I'm sure there was discussion, and this was the best one, that what they are trying to do and what they do falls under commercial stable as designated in our code, even though it's not a clean title and it's a nonprofit and it's different than.
We've had that discussion many times.
Yeah.
We've actually already been approved for two other, there was a special use permit in the past for the past two locations. And it's challenging because we don't feel we're commercial stable, but that there is no other category that we would fall under.
Well, and often a code or a permit does not distinguish between the type of owner. You could be a corporation, you could be an individual, you could be a nonprofit, you could be a government agency. You all have to follow the same rules. So it's just how it is. It's like that everywhere. Every state I've worked in, they don't really say, well, if you're this, then you get like a special break. It's just about the land use and the impacts of the possible land use.
I don't legally, I don't think there's the ability to say, well, two people can't own this house, but one person can. It's sort of along those lines of the use only is what looked at, whether it's for a great cause or for other purposes. The use is the use. And that's just the way it is here and everywhere.
Yeah. And I know Victoria, the previous owner, she did have up to 27 horses there and did keep horses there. So it was used before for horses.
Well, I was trying to get to that earlier. Like, what was a pre-existing use? And I think you're saying she probably did need a permit as a commercial stable.
I don't know the specifics, but we've looked and there wasn't one.
Gotcha.
Maybe it wasn't.
No, it is. Bonnie Lane is divided. No, it was.
Yeah, it's been like this for a while.
It's been what, sphere of influence of Reno or county?
Correct. Well, it's in the county, but the sphere of influence for
the had to apply about 2 years ago.
That it was brought into the sphere of influence?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah,
that's true. I was getting about a year and a half ago, I was getting a permit to put in a propane heating system in the house. And the county building inspector was handing me the permit, and a woman came through, no, they're in the sphere of influence of Reno now. So I had to go reapply to Reno. It's brand new.
Yeah, I don't know the exact history on it. I could certainly pull, but I don't know when the last time we updated our sphere of influence.
That was maybe that wasn't actually illegal, it was just in the county.
Well, I don't think any of us are in a position to say whether something was legal or illegal. And I also don't know about this change because I've been in the council for 8 years and I don't recall the sphere. What I do recall was there was an application for a nursing home type use, you'll call that, which is where Mr. Fisher lives now and houses. There was a proposal to put a commercial nursing home facility related type of activity.
That was on the eastern side of Bonnie Lane, the west side It's always been residential and county.
Right, and nothing's changed from that.
No, now we're in the sphere of into Sereno.
But-
We never put our hands up and said, oh, please.
No, but what I'm saying is, what I don't recall is when that application came in for that nursing home, if something changed then. And maybe you could check that out.
Yeah, I could certainly, sir, I'll get your contact info and your property, and I can look how long it's been in the sphere of influence.
Yeah.
I'll grab that before you leave. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, before you leave.
Or I could do it now, unless.
No.
Yeah.
Is there any difference between this request and the request on Holcomb Lane by the Whitmers who wish to also have this?
The big difference, because I'm familiar with that, is that's in the county. It's not in the sphere, different rules apply. And so that is the difference. I don't know what they plan at the other location, how many horses, what size, any details.
But the sphere and the county is the difference.
Yes.
Because we are the county.
Right.
And we are adjacent. I don't know how they decided and which side of the street. So that's, that's a distinct valuation.
So all of that was done long before I was on. So I do not know when that was done, but I do know it was receiving me quite a bit. But we're gonna find out from Elliot.
How long it's been in there? Yeah, I can pull it up if I can see if I can pull it up right now.
Well,
Okay.
Nick has a computer.
Yeah. Yeah. If I can.
Thank you. Okay. Spirited I'm trying to bring this one home. Spirited conversation. A lot of great questions. Andy, again, thank you very much for those. Nikki, appreciate you fielding what you could. Understood that Saturday, 2 p.m. is going to be the community meeting. Great. Outside of that, any final questions, comments, concerns? Okay, thank you very much. Great questions, Robert. Thank you. Thank you, Nikki. Okay, with that, we will press forward to item C, Board Commission Committee member reports and announcements for anything that wasn't discussed or captured already. Going once, going twice, 3 times a lady. All right. D, with that, future agenda items. Discussion of future agenda items. No action to be taken, but anything that we as a NAB would like to see next month. Recognizing there's a few things that are also open that Nick spoke to. I think just closing those out would be greatly appreciated as part of the transition. Flagging those. Thank you, sir. Okay. Oh, good. No, we're barreling towards the finish. Anything you want, let's do it.
No, just go to the next item and then I'll tell you. But
Gotcha. Okay. Something for public comment then on line item E. Again, around the room. Any more public comments? Okay, again, thank you very much. We're not public. We're the NAB. What do you got?
Oh, I just have a note from Mary that I wanted to read. Thank you for allowing Marshall and I the opportunity to speak this evening. I have to get the kiddos settled for the night now, but thanks.
Wonderful. Appreciate Mary and Marshall taking the time. Okay, and with that, we are up to line item F. Any motions to adjourn? We got it. We got that. Any seconds?
Second that.
A second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Wonderful. With that, it's adjourned. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.